What's going on, wrestling fans? I am your host, Gina J, here for another episode of Renegade Wrestling Review. Just got done watching SmackDown, and what the fuck is all I have to say. So let's get right into it. Alright, so before we talk about SmackDown, let's go back to yesterday's Raffle night, I'm going to call it. I don't even know what else to say. I know that as WWE fans, we are supposed to just be fans. We're supposed to sit back. We're supposed to enjoy what we're seeing. But it's kind of hard to sit back and enjoy something that is completely unenjoyable. Last night's Raw had a few minor positives, but not a whole lot. I did feel that it was better than last week's Raw, which was just god-awful, but not by much. You know, you would think for a multi-billion-dollar business like the WWE that they would be bringing us something, you know, listening to the fans a little bit more. They listen to the fans here and there, not nearly as much as I believe that they should. Then again, who am I to talk? I'm just another podcaster out there thinking that I know it all, supposedly according to some WWE superstars. Let's get the facts straight. I don't think that I know it all. I am just a wrestling fan, and I'm just calling it as I see it. I don't think I know everything about the business. I probably only know about a third, if even that, of what it actually takes to make it in the business. But as a fan, I know what I like to see, and I know what I don't like to see. Last night was one of those nights that it didn't do it for me. I mean, we started out with Ronda Rousey, Nia Jax, Tamina, and of course Natty in the ring. That broke down really quick. Riot Squad came out. They ended up putting Natty through a table. Ronda had to fight off Tamina and Nia Jax herself. Ultimately resulted in possible injury to Natty's elbow. That segment did not do anything for me. Same with the Sasha and Bayley and Alexa Bliss questionnaire that they have going on. It didn't work last week. I don't understand why they're doing it again this week, but whatever. It is what it is, and we got them, and a match was ultimately made between Sasha and Bayley versus Mickie James and Alicia Fox. I didn't give a crap about this match, honestly. It hurts me to say that as a women's wrestling fan, but I just didn't care. It didn't do anything for me. So, moving on, we had, it was the Revival versus... I honestly don't even remember who the hell they reversed against. That's how little I cared about the match. All I know is that the Revival, Scott Dawson, lost again. I don't know what they're doing to the Revival. I don't know if they're planning some kind of a big heel turn to where they come back and they just majorly kick ass, or maybe a babyface turn since the Revival are kind of heels already the way it is now. I don't understand what they're doing. All I know is that I believe it was Scott Dawson and the Young Bucks tweeted out yesterday that someday you would see matches where they faced each other. And I hope that happens because I don't want to see the Revival in WWE anymore. They are not being used the way that they should be, in my personal opinion. And I don't know. Hopefully one day I'm hoping to get that Young Bucks match that we're all looking forward to, because like I said, WWE just, I don't know what they're doing with them. We had a Drew Appreciation Night in which Baron Corbin came out and handed Drew McIntyre a very flimsy looking medal, so I thought, for his actions on last week's Raw. Drew, of course, took over saying how it was all him, blah, 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 I'm great, yada, 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 and Dolph came out, and Dolph told him pretty much, hey, listen, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. Drew didn't take that so well, so he, of course, attacked Dolph. Those two started getting into it, which ultimately led to a match designated by none other than the ruthless asshole himself, Baron Corbin. And Dolph Ziggler took a beating in this match. I'm not going to lie, it was a little hard to watch at times. For all those wrestling people out there, or non-wrestling people out there, I should say that wrestling is fake. There were a couple spots last night that I was actually truly concerned for Dolph. Of course, we had a Finn Balor interference, which caught my attention immediately. As you all know, I am a huge Finn Balor fan. Balor's interference ultimately led to Drew losing the match to Dolph Ziggler after Balor kicked him into the barricade, and Drew McIntyre was, of course, not able to make it back to the ring by the count of 10. Moving on to other news that happened in Raw, we had Elias smashing a guitar over Lio Rush's back, again with the help of the distraction of Finn Balor. Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush had come out during Elias's performance, planning on attacking Elias, and Balor, of course, was standing off to the side, came to Elias's aid. The next match that I'm going to talk about, I really don't even want to talk about it. But what the hell are they doing with Drake Maverick? Honestly, I can't take the guy seriously after last week and pissing on Bobby Roode's robe. I cannot take him seriously whatsoever. The match made last night was initially supposed to be Bobby Roode versus Drake Maverick. And if Bobby Roode won, then Roode and Gable would get another shot at the Tag Team Championship from AOP. Now, of course, Baron Corbin, with that authority figure, coming out, suddenly changing the match rules. It is now a 3-on-1 handicap match with AOP and Drake Maverick versus Bobby Roode. Chad Gable comes out. It was supposed to be a 3-on-2 match. However, Chad Gable got attacked by AOP in the back. He did ultimately make it out, but he was not able to help, and Roode and Gable fell to AOP and Drake Maverick. I'm not really too sure exactly what their plans are with this. With the whole Baron Corbin authority, quote-unquote, figure that's going on right now, I honestly think that they're trying to make it where it is like a giant heel faction versus a giant face faction, so to speak. Because you have like Finn Balor, Elias, Bobby Roode, Chad Gable, Seth Rollins. There's a few that are faces, and then you have the heels: Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, yada yada yada. The list goes on. Bobby Lashley, Lio Rush. The list goes on. So I think that that's where they're kind of trying to take that, but I don't see how that's going to pan out unless they're using it storyline wise to where either they're all going to face off in one big match, either that, or possibly break it down into smaller matches in order to kind of build that storyline going forward. If that's what they're doing, I'm okay with that. I just don't want to see them build all these baby faces up together and then build all these heels up together and then it fall apart like everything else has. I want to see this go somewhere. Next up, we had Heath Slater versus Rhino, which again was another match that Constable Corbin made. Loser leaves WWE, and the winner, of course, as we know now, gets designated to a referee spot. Rhino, of course, lost that match. I honestly think that he may be getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. I know that he is getting inducted into another Hall of Fame. Can't remember which one it is off the top of my head. I'd have to ask my friend Adam out there at DSO Wrestling to verify that for me. But he is getting inducted into another Hall of Fame. I would like to see him go into WWE Hall of Fame this year. I know that he was absent for quite a few years, but the guy really did do a lot for the company back in the early 2000s, like late 90s, early 2000s era, so I would really like to see that. Jinder Mahal versus Finn Balor. Of course, we had interference by the Singh brothers. However, another babyface, Apollo Crews, came out and took care of the Singh brothers, which ultimately led for Finn Balor to defeat Jinder Mahal. However, shortly after that win, Drew McIntyre comes out and jumps Finn Balor backstage. I'm sorry, he didn't come out. He jumped him backstage. It took a few refs to get him off. Yada, yada, yada. You know the drill. So there's obviously a feud brewing between them. I hope that it takes Finn Balor to the Universal Championship level, but I don't think it's going to. I think that they're using Finn in order to build Drew up to that Universal Champion that they want, because, let's face it, Vince loves his big, burly guys. Last match of the night, we've seen Ronda Rousey and Ember Moon take on Nia Jax and Tamina. This match just, honestly, I could give a crap less about this match to begin with, but what did it in for me really was right towards the end, Nia Jax was afraid to get into the ring with Ronda Rousey. She wouldn't allow Tamina, or she allowed Tamina to tag her in, but then she immediately tagged out. How is that working for her heel character that she has going on right now? She's got this heel character that she's a badass, and she broke Becky Lynch's face and all this other stuff, but yet she's running away from Ronda Rousey. It doesn't work for me. Nia Jax's whole character doesn't work for me. I'm sorry, I love the girl to death, but she has not worked for me as a face. She has not worked as a heel. I don't know what they're really going to do with her. I do think that they need to send her back to NXT, into developmental a little bit, maybe work on her promos a little bit more, because it seems like she's just overacting a little bit when she's doing those promos. But ultimately, Raw was a big floppy, like 2 out of 10 for me. It was horrible, in my opinion. Like I said, last week was rough. Like, it was really rough, but this week was not much better. WWE has to do something soon, because all of the longtime fans like me, it's really taking a lot for me to stick around and keep watching WWE. I'm not going to lie, I've been watching a lot more New Japan and a lot more ROH as of late. That is just more entertaining to me. Now, there's trouble in WWE waters when me, as a hardcore fan, I've been a hardcore WWE fan since 1998, I believe it was, 1998 into 99. And for me to say that I would rather watch a company that I just started really watching earlier this year, I would rather watch one of New Japan pay-per-views from, say, 4 years ago than watch the product that WWE is putting out today. And that's where the problem is coming in. A lot of fans are like me. A lot of fans are sick of it. The only really good thing that they have going on right now is of course, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins feud that we saw on Monday. I forgot to mention that, but we did see the feud keep going on with them. Dean Ambrose has this weird, like, germaphobe / lunatic thing going on. I don't know where they're taking his storyline. I was so completely confused about that. And, like, last night we saw Seth Rollins come out, attack Dean. Dean had security around him with gas masks on. Seth took out the entire security. And then, of course, those two started fighting, squaring off. And Dean ultimately hit Seth with a camera, I believe it was. And I just don't know what's going on anymore. I don't know what they're doing with Dean. The whole thing has me completely confused. And I am usually pretty good at attempting to see what direction they're taking it. Written down on paper in front of me, some of the storylines make sense, but when you watch them on TV, they're horrible. And I think a lot of it is just because of overacting in promos. They're overacting in the ring. They're not hitting each other in the ring. We saw Ronda Rousey punching air last night. So when you see stuff like that as a hardcore WWE fan, especially a fan that pays attention to New Japan or anything that is going on in the indies right now, you're immediately turned off. So WWE Raw brand has got to do something, and soon. Moving on to SmackDown tonight, we started out the night with the contract signing between Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Asuka for the Triple Threat TLC match coming up. I'm actually really excited about this match. It is the first ever women's tables, ladders, and chairs match. I know some of you guys are getting sick and tired of hearing first women's match ever, blah, blah, blah. But it's really exciting being a female wrestling fan and knowing that female wrestling is at the point where it is now, that we can see these matches. And these three superstars, they always bring it. They always put their best out there when it's a pay-per-view match. So I'm really excited to see that match, especially after tonight. We had some really good promos from all three women in the ring tonight, and you can tell that there is just fire lying between these three. And Becky Lynch, of course, she's absolutely amazing. She's this like heel babyface combination, and it's just absolutely great. Everybody loves her. Charlotte is a great heel. Asuka is kind of playing the babyface, but she's kind of fed up. You can tell that she's really fed up with getting overlooked all the time. These promos were interrupted by none other than Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, who came down ringside and started running their mouths again, which ultimately led to a match between those two and Charlotte and Asuka. Charlotte and Asuka were not on the same page at all night long. So to put them in a match together, it was spelling trouble, and ultimately it ended with Asuka hitting a sliding knee to Charlotte, obviously on purpose. I'm kind of interested as to where that takes us next week, because I believe TLC pay-per-view is not this weekend, but the weekend following that. So next week will be their go-home show. I'm really interested to see what happens there. The next match we had tonight was Jey Uso versus Xavier Woods versus Cesaro in a triple threat match. These three guys, actually these three tag teams in general, they always leave their best in the ring. I don't know if there's three better tag teams in the WWE at this moment. Revival can be argued by some, but on SmackDown, definitely for sure. Obviously, these are three of the only tag teams on SmackDown, since Vince is not a big tag team wrestling fan. But anyways, these guys, they give us their all every single match that they come out. This was a great match. I could have done without Kofi and Big E on commentary. I know that they do that for entertainment purposes, but it's just, it gets to be a little bit too much for me, especially with Byron Saxton there as well. It becomes more of a like ass-kissing type thing. It's kind of like what happens with Corey Graves whenever there's a heel out there, you know, for SmackDown anyway. He always, it's the ass-kissing technique, and they've been doing this since way back in, even prior to the Jim Ross and the King days. It's been going on forever. It's just Byron Saxton. I like the guy. It's just when he does this, he comes off kind of like a whiny little brother, so to speak. So to have those two on the announcement table was just too much. It took away from the match, in my opinion. Next up, we had Daniel Bryan appear on Miz TV, and there was a really weird promo cut by Daniel Bryan. Of course, we all know that Daniel Bryan has now turned heel. However, now he's some kind of like weird environmentalist, like an angry environmentalist. I never thought I would hear those two words together, like an angry environmentalist hippie. But that's what they're giving us, and I don't know if this was his idea or if this was WWE's idea. I know he is a big environmentalist in quote-unquote in real life. However, I just don't know if that takes up with the heel turn, so to speak. It was really, really awkward and really weird. He kept on calling the audience fickle over and over again. He went through, the audience was saying what, and he said that they can't stop saying something that happened 20 years ago, and it was just, he was attacking the audience, which is great. That's exactly what a heel should do, but I didn't really care for hearing him scream fickle over and over again. Anyways, AJ Styles ultimately decides to come down and confront Daniel Bryan. This, of course, breaks out into a fight between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. Daniel's trying to get away. The Miz ultimately gets in the way and ends up delivering a skull-crushing finale to AJ Styles. This, of course, sets up a match for them later on in the night that we will get to in a minute. My biggest question coming off of this was, since when is The Miz helping Daniel Bryan? Now, I can see that they're taking the storyline to where The Miz and Daniel would kind of be heels together, like working together. Obviously, The Miz was talking about how, Daniel took his advice and yada, yada, yada. So I can see the storyline going there. But just a couple of weeks ago, they still had The Miz squaring off against Daniel Bryan. So I'm a little confused. It was a quick jump in the storyline that just leaves a big gap as to why. And that's been happening a lot on the main roster as of late. Anyways, the next match was Randy Orton versus Jeff Hardy again. This match was very typical of any Randy Orton versus Jeff Hardy match. We've seen it how many times in the past several months. I love Jeff Hardy, but this match is just getting to be a little old. Randy Orton ultimately picked up the win in that one. However, the good part about this match actually happened after the match. Samoa Joe came on and he was in a bar. Now, as we know from last week, Samoa Joe is using Jeff Hardy's addictions as a promo against him. Tonight he was in the bar and he was talking about Jeff's DWI that he got just last year, I believe it was. Obviously, you could tell that Hardy was embarrassed and he was angry, kind of got out of the ring with his head down, despite the fact that the audience was cheering him. I know this is kind of a low blow tactic, but I think that it is freaking great. Now, as much as I love Jeff Hardy, and I know he has been through hell and back with his addictions, this is great for Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe is the classic heel, and what does the classic heel do better than attack a person's weaknesses? And Jeff Hardy's addiction is his greatest weakness. So I think that with what they're doing with Joe is absolutely phenomenal. I hope that they continue with it. I don't know why Joe isn't getting a push towards the title. I have a feeling it has something to do with his age, but then again, Jeff Hardy is older than Samoa Joe, and he still gets pushed for titles. So I honestly don't know why Joe isn't pushed for a title. I hope it happens before he has to retire. But anyways, tonight, absolute fire from Samoa Joe as normal. Last match of the night, it was The Miz versus AJ Styles. We saw a lot of back and forth in this match. Daniel Bryan was, of course, at ringside. talking his weird heel environmentalist hippie stuff. Now, I am an environmentalist, 100%. But what he was talking, it made complete sense from an environmentalist standpoint, but as a heel wrestler, it was just odd. I mean, you know, like accusing people of leaving water bottles on the side of the road, and I don't know, maybe it's just something that I haven't seen, so maybe that's why it strikes me as odd. It is new, I will give him that. It is a new tactic for a heel to take. Obviously it works because the audience was not liking Daniel Bryan. Ultimately, anyway, Daniel Bryan did interfere in this match, kind of distracted AJ Styles, and it ultimately cost AJ the match. Shortly after, AJ hit calf crusher. So Daniel Bryan gets up on the ring after the calf crusher, distracts him. As I said, The Miz picks up the victory. It was all just really weird and unsettling. I'm not really too sure how to feel about it. SmackDown is obviously the A show, quote unquote, in the WWE, aside from NXT, of course. But with New Japan picking up steam and Impact coming up, Lucha had a little bit of a push. The Indies are majorly picking up steam. So my question is, what does the WWE plan to do in order to keep fans attracted to it? Because unless you're a 5-year-old kid who's tuning into wrestling for the first time and doesn't know any better, you're going to be sitting there like, what the hell am I watching? I can tell you this much. I was a teenager when I tuned into WWE for the first time. Back in 1998. I believe I was like 16 years old. 16, 17, somewhere in there. But if I was 16, 17 years old and I tuned into what we have today, I would have never become a fan. I would have been like, this looks like the most fake shit I've ever seen in my life. Because if you base wrestling based on what you're seeing in WWE, it does look fake. I mean, I'm not saying that everything they do is fake. But when you see Ronda Rousey fake punching Tamina, and you can tell there is about a mile in between Tamina and Ronda's fist, then there's something wrong. Or when you see Nia Jax just screaming, "Mine," into a microphone, there's something wrong. When I can tune into New Japan and there's absolutely no storyline. I mean, obviously they work the storyline out in the ring over there. They do have the Japanese behind the scenes, but I don't speak Japanese, unfortunately, so most of the time I don't understand what's going on until afterwards when I look on the YouTube channel. So I judge it based on the matches alone, and the story is in the match. It's inside the ring. They tell beautiful stories there. So when I can look at New Japan and say that is 10 times better than WWE is right now, WWE is supposed to be World Wrestling Entertainment. They're not entertaining us. So they need to do something soon. As I said before, after the Raw part of this episode, they're going to fall. They're going to fall, and they're going to fall hard. It may not be anytime soon, but it will happen if they continue on this route. I have seen so many angry WWE fans on Twitter, on Facebook, all over social media, and they're chalking it up to, oh, the fans don't know what they want. The fans don't know what they're talking about. Well, some of us have been watching wrestling for over 20 years, so yes, we may not know everything that goes on behind the scenes, but we know what we like. And we're reaching out and we're telling you, we're pleading with you to change it because we don't like any of this. Becky is literally the best thing that they have going for them right now. So whoever's writing Becky storylines needs to start writing storylines for the rest of it, if you ask me. Anyways, I think I've mumbled enough already. I have a headache after watching wrestling this week. I'm going to go back to watching New Japan. You guys all have a good night. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave me a comment on what you want to see me do. As I said, I will be having a new episode coming out regarding something with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I am going back and watching the pay-per-views beginning with Wrestle Kingdom from this year. I will be coming out shortly with my version of the best matches of the year for New Japan, so keep a lookout for that. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys later. See ya.